Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Paige, this is Seeking Alexandria, and guys, I'm so excited today because this is a really anticipated video. I wanted to take some time, get to know the product, and now we're going to officially dive in, give you my thoughts, opinion, reviews, swatches, all the good tea on the Benefit Cheekleader palettes. Now, something very interesting and unique that I'll be also doing in this video is throwing in the Benefit Cheek Parade, because if you are like me and you already have this palette, you want to know how do these compare, do they stack up to this one, what's the differences, similarities, so on and so forth, as well as which ones I believe have the best shades for my personal skin tone. Now, one thing I do also want to mention before I dive into the shades is that I have tried so many different ways and tons of footage to try and figure out what would be the best way to convey these shades on camera for you guys. And I know a lot of you do love cheek swatches, but what I find is that more often than not, when I am taking a video of me physically applying a product, you really can't see the true actual tone or undertone or color of the product. And because for so many of you we are not the same skin tone, complexion, or undertone, I wanted to give you the best representation of the shade itself. So while I do have tons and tons of video of me applying these, I don't think I'll be putting it in this video because I don't think that it would be a proper representation of the shades, nor do I think it would actually convey the difference between the palettes, because again, every time I'm applying these, they are going on either a different foundation base or a different lighting, or maybe the sun was a little different that day. Like, there's just too many variables for me to include that in a video like this, where I think that looking at the actual tone of the swatches is what's most important. So I just wanted to throw that out there. If you're like, girl, what the hell is going on? Like, why didn't you? But if that is something you're looking for and you're wanting to see all of these on my skin, girl, just know that I have been using both of these palettes almost exclusively for probably the last, I'd say 2 to 3, maybe even 4 weeks. I've been using the bronzers, the blushes, the highlights, really trying to get a feel for them on my complexion with different looks and so on and so forth. So if you're curious, you have been seeing them in action on my skin, and in, I would say, probably 90% of the videos, if you watch them, I do tell you at the end of the video what I used and which shades I was wearing for the most part. I know there's a couple times I forget, but again, for the most part, I do tell you guys what I was wearing. So if that's something you're curious about and you watch all of my videos, and if that is something, maybe we are closer in skin complexion and you want to test that out, you can definitely check that out. But for today's video, I'm going to be using a lot of swatches because again, I think it will be the most even way that I can show you guys all of the differences and similarities. So all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and start talking. So to get started, I'm actually going to grab the Bronze Squad first. Now, as you guys can tell, I took my sweater off because y'all, I'm going to be swatching these in real time for you because I really think yet again it will give us the best even lighting as far as what's coming through right now. I'm getting really good lighting between my lights and the lights. I opened up all the lights in this room to try and make sure everything would hit the camera just right, but I also know that if I'm zooming this camera in and out, it messes with the white balance. So I'm just going to be very careful and give you guys the best swatches that I can, girl, and don't get mad at me. Alright, so all 5 shades are right here in the palette. I also just went ahead and swatched them on my arm for you guys. And here's the first thing I'm going to note that I think everybody is curious about, and that would be this Hula Caramel shade and how I have been using it. Let me first start off by introducing you to this beautiful little shade. This is Hula Caramel, and Benefit actually introduced this shade at the same time they introduced these palettes to the world, and I absolutely love it because this is a tone that is actually designed for medium to deep skin tones. I don't know how deep in the spectrum it would go, but I love that Benefit came out with this and included it in one of these palettes because I just thought it was a little bit raunchy for a company to come out with a palette like this that has the original Hula and then go lighter but never go any deeper than Hula. I just feel like if you're going to have a palette like this that clearly does go to the lighter spectrum of skin tones, you also need something that would go to the medium and deep skin tones as well. So again, I'm not sure when it comes to this bronze one how deep the Hula Caramel will work for as far as a skin tone goes, but I love that Benefit made a move in this direction because I feel like now this palette is much more inclusive for a wider range of people, and I freaking love that so much. So that's the first thing I'm going to say. Now, as you can see in the swatches that I have on my hand right here, I have Hula Caramel, which is on top. It's much deeper, much warmer, and then underneath of that is the regular Hula. Now, for my skin tone, Hula Caramel, honey, there is no way in God's green earth. I did try it. Big mistake. It is so deep in color that when I applied it to my skin, girl, we had a situation. I had a color block right here that I just could not blend out, and it wasn't the fault of the formula because, truth be told, Benefit has some of the most amazing face contouring products in the entire universe, but it was that I am so fair that that color just like went right in, and girl, there was no getting rid of it, no matter how light a hand I used. It was just too warm, and my undertone and my skin tone mixed with the undertone of this, just, it was a big was a big miss for me. However, I will tell you, I have been loving this shade. I'm wearing it on my eyes right now. I love taking this. It is so easy to mix either through the crease, which is what I did today, all over the lid, which I recently did in my Tarte Found Sealer video, which I will link up here. I put this all over the lid, and then I went in with a glittery shadow also from Tarte that they recently came out with, their metallic, liquid metallic chrome or whatever, and I put that on the lid. And so for me, it was just a really cool way that I could start incorporating this shade, which I really don't have a use for on the face, but I still want to use it because obviously it's in this palette. This is a $60 palette, and I do want to get some use out of it, and I really, really do love the tone on the eyes. So today that is what I'm wearing all over the lid. And then this highlight right here, which is, by the way, can we just talk about both of these highlights? This is the shade Cookie out of this palette, obviously. And guys, the highlights in both of these palettes are so stunning. I can't even breathe. I love them so much. All over the lid, that is what I'm wearing. Guys, spoiler alert, my entire face, like all of the products that you see on it, aside from like foundation and that kind of stuff, but all the powder on my face is from these two palettes. I went in today and just wanted to play around one more time and kind of continue my journey with these palettes, and I have been loving applying all of these powders to the eyes. I think they look so beautiful, and this highlight is so transcendent. I just think it's really awesome though that I've been able to see this shade on my skin tone, which is very, very fair, all the way to a medium to deep skin tone. I think it's really cool that it's a very inclusive shade and that it reflects so differently on different skin tones. Now moving into the Hoola, as far as does that one work for my skin tone, that is actually what I have bronzed my entire skin up with today. Now I did want to talk about this for just a second because Hoola I feel like is a little bit misleading for a lot of people. I personally feel like Hoola can be a little bit too aggressive for my skin tone because I am so fair. I think that more tan, like light tan to deeper tan, gets a lot of use out of Hoola depending on the undertone, but for myself personally it is a little bit too deep. So for me, the ideal application for a bronzer was actually a mixture of Hoola and Hoola Light. As you can tell, I used to go in only with Hoola Light, and then when I started mixing it just a freckle with the Hoola, I think that it was like the perfect mixture. And all the Hoola Light does is tone down the original Hoola just enough that I can get a perfect application. Now again, today I went in with just straight Hoola, and I do think you can see I look a little bit more tan, a little deeper in complexion, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, but it's definitely not like the most natural way for me to sculpt and bronze my skin. This right here is definitely the more natural way for me to go, mixing the two of these. So if you're curious, how does Hoola work for me? That's a little bit of a basic rundown, and this has taken me probably a year to figure out that I liked the Hoola and Hoola Light together, and it's taken me a solid month to try and work out the original Hoola by itself on my skin tone and wear it in a way that I love it. So something to consider. It did take me a while to really get the hang of it. Now moving into the blushes really quick here, you have Colorista and Gold Rush, and I was a little bit bummed out that for this palette they chose very neutral, very similar pinks in my opinion. I feel like even as I sit here and I look at them both in the monitor and in swatch, I feel like they are very similar in tone. Now I believe that Colorista is designed to be more of a corally pink, while this one is meant to be a little less coral and a little more pinky, but still I felt like because this is the Bronze Squad palette, we could have incorporated more of a nudie bronze kind of feel to it. Just something a little bit different that maybe would have matched the theme, quote unquote, a little bit better. Or even if you don't want to go that route, just a little more diversity in the shades would have been nice. But nonetheless, I do really enjoy both of these shades. When applied to the skin, they do react quite differently. In swatch, you can see that they both do have a sheen to them. The Gold Rush is definitely more of like a shiny, shimmery kind of blush. It will make you look very, I don't want to say shiny, but like kind of shiny, kind of highlighty on the apples of your cheeks. At least it does for me. Whereas Colorista goes in and gives more of a light flush with a little bit of shimmer to the cheeks. So I feel like if you're looking at them in swatch and in pan versus on the skin, they do look different as far as the overall sheen to the skin. They do look a little bit different. Again, Colorista giving you more of like a natural sheen versus Gold Rush, which gives you more of like an impactful sheen, more of like a wow, that's intentional sheen, if you kind of get where I'm going with this. But to me, they're just not different enough in color that I was completely obsessed with the choices, but I do really love both shades. Like, I just want to make that clear. I really, really like them. So next up here we have the Pink Squad palette, and I wanted to give you guys a little side-by-side comparison. Now, a lot of people did note the first major difference is that the Bronze Squad has 2 bronzers in it and the other one does not. Now, I personally think that that has a lot to do with the overall aesthetic. Because this is the noted Pink Squad, they wanted it to have more blushes, more pinks, more of a direction with that shade. And then because this one was the Bronze Squad, they wanted it to have more of a bronzy appeal for people that really love that overall bronzy look to the skin. And then again, the pink one being like, hey, how pink do you like to be? There are some people that they don't apply any bronzer and they only love blush. They love light blush, deep blush, heavy blush, blush on the lids, blush on the nose with little fake freckles. Like, there are so many different aesthetics out there. So at first I was a little turned off that they only had 1 bronzer in this one and this one was more inclusive. I was just a little thrown off. But then after going through, looking at the differences, the swatches, and the similarities, I think now that I can understand why this one only has 1 blush, because the point of it is to be more of a pinky toned palette versus a bronzy toned palette. So that being said, let's go ahead and look at the swatches here. And these 5, so starting at the hot pink, we have the Pink Squad palette. I will say I actually like the blush selections better in this one. So playing off the Pink Squad idea, I do like it more for the blushes. So I think that they did a good job there. I love it because all the blushes are different. You have Dallas down here, which is much more of like a mauvey brown. Now, I myself do really enjoy this shade when I'm going for a much more natural look. I love it because it looks like one of those days where you just take a little bronzer and hit the cheeks. That's my favorite thing about this shade, is that it has almost bronzer but with a blush undertone to it, like a little bit of that mauvey difference that sets it just enough apart that I'm like, ooh, something cute, something different, but very easy to wear on the skin. Now, moving into Dandelion, it's a beautiful light ass baby pink shade and I really like it. It's actually the shade I'm wearing today. I went in with just a tiny little bit right here, and what I love about this shade is that on my fair skin it's very, very buildable. Now, to the contrast of that, I don't know how much use you're going to get out of this shade if you are medium to deep skin tone, but as far as me on my skin, I really love this color. I feel like it's a very nice easy wear if you want a little light blush but nothing too overbearing. There are some days that I really want like a nice bronze glow, which is what I was going for today, and that's why I chose this shade. I wanted something that would give me a little pink, a little pop, but nothing too much. Dallas would have been a little too deep, California would have been way the hell out there, and I just felt like Dandelion was perfect as far as light, natural, pinky hue to the cheek, healthy cheek, but not too much. Now I'm going to skip over the highlight shade and come back to that, but I want to touch on California, which this shade was actually included in the original Cheek Parade. If you have this palette, it is right there. So this is something that if you're looking at the palettes, this one in particular, the pink palette, does have a lot of comparisons with this one. That's going to segue me over to something that I really wanted to remember to talk about, which are the similarities between this Pink Squad palette and the Cheekleader. So a lot of similarities between these two palettes. They both have California, which is right here. They both have Dandelion, which is right here. And they both have Hoola, which is right here. So 3 out of the 5 shades you already have if you have the Cheekleader palette. You are missing the Tickle highlight, which is absolutely stunning. I would never take anything away from it because it's beautiful. But you are missing that, and you are missing Dallas. So those have both been traded out with Hula Light over here and Rockateur over here. Again, if you're looking and you already have this, there are a lot of similarities between these two palettes. Just wanted to point it out. Now back to this shade, California. Guys, I love this shade so much. It is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful hot pink shade, and if you're looking at it and you're very intimidated, when I first got my Cheek Parade palette, let me tell you, I used that shade last and I used it the least often at first. But then once I got to know and love her, honey, I used her all the time, and here's why. The first thing I think that no one tells you with this particular shade is that yes, if you swatch it like this or you go in with a really dense brush, you are going to get a very dense application, and on the apples of your cheeks, girl, you're gonna have little Santa Claus cheeks. At least I do, because I'm so fair, and it's not really the look I'm going for, you know, with this bright of a shade. But when you go in with a brush like this, this is my favorite blush brush. It is the IT Cosmetics 227 Flawless Blush Brush, and I love it because it is so loose right up through here, and it allows you to really pack product on like this over a larger area versus a very specified base. So when you take this shade, which I'm going to load this brush up right here, and you can see on the brush, like, look at how hot that is, right? But when you go in and you start applying it, you're able to build it up in intensity, and all of a sudden, instead of having this intense stripe of color, you are able to build it up and get however an intense shade you want. And you're also able to build up not only the color but the sheen, which makes this really special. So now I told you guys I would get into it. Hello, it's time. Let's talk about Tickle, which is such a beautiful pink undertone highlight. I cannot stand how stunning this is. I love putting this all over the lid. It looks beautiful. Now I do also use this as a highlight on my skin tone. It does look very nice. However, when you'll see right here, actually as I turn my arm, it can give me a little bit of a gray cast. It is slightly too deep for me, so I do have to be mindful when working with this shade. I usually have to go in and brighten it up a little bit, like on the high points right up here. So something to consider if you're on the fairer end. That is something I have dealt with. However, do I mind working with it? Absolutely not. I love this shade so much. I think it is stunning and beautiful and smooth. Both of the highlights in these palettes are so effortless, and the way that they sit down on the skin is unlike anything. It's just, it feels like when you're applying like butter to toast, like it just like melts in. That's how these feel in my pores. They just sit down, melt in, and look stunning. Now of the two, like I said, I do prefer Cookie up here, but Tickle is absolutely stunning. I've worn both, used both so many times, and I think again the main difference for me, even past like the golden versus pink undertone, would be how they look on my skin. I do feel like Cookie sits a little bit better on my fair skin than Tickle, but again, both still beautiful, both stunning, and I really have enjoyed this palette overall. Just so many little things to note that I'm trying to touch on them all. So I am going to go ahead and real quick swatch the Cheek Parade palette for you as well, so we can see that one last comparison, and then I think we're done, guys. So now we're officially ready to dive in. This is the original Cheek Parade palette, which I just want to point out, like, I think it's so funny to look at the evolution of color between the original, which is so light and pale in comparison to like these ones, which have highlights and more brightness and like all of this other, I don't know, like dimension to them. And then this one, just like the little baby, like, I don't know, the evolution to me is just kind of cute. Now that we went through, we've swatched, we've talked everything, we've compared, we've looked, we've done it all, I really wanted to hone in on something that I've been asked a lot, which is, Paige, which one is your favorite? And I'm here to tell you, I don't think I could pick a favorite. And I have my reasons, because I feel like these aesthetics are two completely different aesthetics, and there's different pieces that I would pull out of each palette to make my favorite palette, if that makes sense. So what I mean by that is, if we go into the Cheek Parade palette, I probably would still want my Hoola and my Hoola Light. I love both of them. That would leave me 3 spots, and out of those 3 remaining spots, I would probably choose the Cookie highlight from this palette, the Tickle highlight, oddly enough, from this palette, which would leave me 1 blush. Honestly, it would be a toss-up between Dandelion and Colorista, because I love them both so much. But I guess the moral of my story here is I can't really pick a favorite, because it does depend so much on my overall aesthetic for that day. Just like today, you'd look at me and you'd think, oh, well, she picked the bronze. Well, I picked the bronze for some of what they had, and then I also went with the pink squad for some of what they had. And of course, I shouldn't forget that every single one of them does come with this little brush. I never use these. They are nice and soft. You can use them. I think if I were to use it, it would probably be for highlight, just because I don't really love this for blush or bronzer. But that's just, again, my personal opinion, my personal aesthetic. I feel like I agree with everyone when I say, instead of leaving me that pocket for this weird little square thing, how about you just put another option here? How about you just put another highlighter, another blusher, another bronzer? Maybe make a bronzer and make it all skin tone inclusive and put it in every palette. Maybe something. I don't know. I know that these are $60, and for what you get, it is a hell of a deal. I'm just saying, you know, why stop there when instead of giving us this, girl, you could give us a whole nother shade. That's all I'm saying. But you guys, that is it. This is my entire rundown, my thoughts, my opinion, my review of not only the 2 new Cheekleader palettes, but also adding in the Cheek Parade, and what I think and how I compare and contrast them. So I really hope it was helpful. I'm so sorry that it was so long and talky and drawn out. I will do my best to edit it down to only what you need to know. But guys, I feel like when we're coming down to a palette that is $60, honey, I want to give you all the thoughts, all the tea, everything I have to offer. So that is what I did today. Now, I want to know from you guys down below. Leave me your thoughts, your opinions. What do you think of the video? What do you think of these palettes? Do you plan to test them out, try them out, give it a go, or not so much? Are they not for you? If they're not, tell me why. I want to know everything. And also, if you have not done so yet, please don't forget you can go down to that description box. You can follow me on Instagram and on Twitter. They're both linked and they're hyperlinks. All you have to do is click it, hit follow, and y'all, I'm trying to get verified on Instagram, and y'all have been helping me so much. I don't know what this is today, but it's a lot. And if you also have not done so, you can go ahead and subscribe and turn on your post notifications here for the wonderful world of YouTube, because y'all, I upload 5 videos a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. They go up bright and early between 6 and 7 a.m. my time here in Northern Michigan, and it is a fun, fresh lit time. We talk about makeup, new, old, hello, new, old, love it, hate it, whatever the case may be. We talk about it, and it's nice, bright, early, fun. But you guys, that is it. Thank you all so much for watching. Please do not forget to have a great day, night, weekend, whatever it is when you're watching this, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Oh my word. I'm sorry. Was this black spot there the entire time? Oh my, on this side, guys, my mascara transferred so bad. I just filmed an entire video. God only knows what that looks like. I can't wait to play it back and find out. Do you want to know what mascara I'm using? It would be the Charlotte Tilbury Legendary Lashes Volume 2 mascara, and it just transferred all down here. Are you freaking kidding me? Charlotte Tilbury. That is so rude. Gotta take off the swatches. Take off the swatches if you want to put your sweater on. Now, I do think that keep on scrolling, 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 scrolling. Keep on scrolling, 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 scrolling. Keep on scrolling, 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 scrolling. Oh, Limp Bizkit. What a part of my childhood. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and start off with the To get started, I'm going to start off. And so for me, those were just, okay, start over.